The rain had just begun to fall when Daniel Carter parked across the street from his own restaurant. From the outside, Carter's grill looked perfect. Bright lights, polished windows, and a glowing sign welcoming late-night customers. Online reviews praised the place as one of the best spots in the city. Business was booming, but something didn't sit right with Daniel. Over the past few weeks, he had noticed strange patterns: missing inventory, inconsistent cash reports, and a growing number of quiet complaints that never made it to the official review pages. Managers kept insisting everything was under control, so Daniel decided to find out for himself. And tonight, he came alone, dressed in a plain hoodie, worn jeans, and an old baseball cap. The restaurant owner stepped through the doors at 10:55 p.m., just 5 minutes before closing. Inside, the atmosphere was different from what customers normally saw. The bright smiles were gone. 2 servers leaned against the counter scrolling through their phones. A cook slammed a pan onto the stove with obvious frustration. Near the register, the shift manager, Kyle, was counting cash with a look that wasn't exactly calm. Daniel quietly took a seat at the bar. No one recognized him. To them, he was just another late-night customer. A waitress walked over reluctantly. "Kitchen closes in 5 minutes," she said flatly. "That's fine," Daniel replied calmly. "Just a burger and water." She sighed like the request was a burden, scribbled on her notepad, and disappeared toward the kitchen. Daniel looked around. A group of employees near the back were whispering and laughing about customers who had just left. "You see that guy earlier?" one server joked. "Dude tipped $2. Should have added a little extra to his bill." Another one laughed. Daniel's eyes narrowed slightly. 10 minutes later, his burger arrived. Cold. The fries looked like they had been sitting under a heat lamp for hours. Daniel took a small bite, then waited. The waitress never came back to check. Across the room, Kyle the manager was doing something strange. Daniel watched closely. A customer had just paid their bill and left, but Kyle reopened the transaction on the screen. He tapped a few buttons, printed a new receipt, and slipped a few extra dollars into the tip line. Then he closed the register again. Daniel leaned forward. Did he just add a tip? Moments later, another employee approached Kyle holding a takeout bag. "Table 7 didn't pay for their drinks," she whispered. Kyle smirked. "Just charge it to their card anyway. They're already gone." The employees laughed. Daniel's jaw tightened. For the next 20 minutes, he quietly observed everything. Food being rushed and poorly prepared. Staff mocking customers behind their backs. Bills being quietly adjusted after people left. Even worse, leftover food being repackaged and served again. This wasn't just bad service. It was dishonest, and it was happening in his restaurant. Finally, Daniel stood up and walked toward the counter. Kyle looked up casually. "You ready to pay?" Daniel placed the cold burger back on the counter. "How much is it?" Kyle rang it up quickly. "That'll be $24.50. Daniel looked at the screen. Then he noticed something interesting. The bill included a $6 tip. Daniel hadn't left one. He looked at Kyle. "You added the tip yourself?" Kyle shrugged. "Automatic gratuity." Daniel's voice stayed calm. "For one person?" Kyle leaned forward. "Look, man, if you don't like it, you can eat somewhere else." A few employees nearby snickered. Daniel slowly removed his baseball cap. Then he reached into his pocket and pulled out a small card. He slid it across the counter. Kyle picked it up casually. Then his face turned pale. The card read, "Daniel Carter, owner." The laughter in the room stopped instantly. One of the servers gasped. Another employee whispered, "Wait, that's him." Kyle's hands started shaking. Daniel's voice was still calm, but now the room felt frozen. "I've been sitting here for 40 minutes, Daniel said, "watching everything." No one spoke. "I saw you change customer bills." Silence. "I saw food being served cold." The cook looked down. "And I watched you add tips customers never approved." Kyle tried to speak. "Sir, I can explain." Daniel raised his hand. "No, you already did." The room felt heavy. "Do you know what actually keeps a restaurant alive?" Daniel continued, "Trust." He looked around the room. When customers walk through those doors, they trust us with their money, their time, and their experience. No one dared to move. And tonight, Daniel said quietly, that trust was broken. Kyle's voice cracked. "I'm sorry." Daniel shook his head slowly. "Sorry doesn't fix what you've been doing." He turned toward the staff. "Anyone involved in altering bills or scamming customers is terminated effective immediately." 2 employees froze. Kyle looked like he might collapse. "But for the rest of you," Daniel continued, "this is your warning." The tension in the room was unbearable. If this restaurant is going to succeed, it will be built on honesty. He picked up his jacket. Because the truth always comes out. And tonight, it did.